Senator Biden, welcome to the Advocates.
Thank you. Good to be here. Senator Biden, it's nice to have you here. As the youngest member of the Senate, the one, therefore, who may expect the longest career there, I wonder if you'd say to us, since it's clear that you're not corrupt and you got elected.
I highly doubt that.
Since it's clear that you're not corrupt and you got elected.
Why should people think that the system produces corrupt results when there you are?
Well, I'm not sure you should assume I'm not corrupt, but thank you for that, though. The system does produce corruption, and I think implicit in the system is corruption, when in fact, whether or not you can run for public office, and it costs a great deal of money to run for the United States Senate, even for a small state like Delaware, you have to go to those people who have money, and they always want something.
Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
Well, I'm not sure you should assume I'm not corrupt, but thank you for that, though.
You're a chump.
Well, that was very interesting from 1974. You shouldn't assume that I'm not corrupt, Senator Biden said. Welcome back, Warriors. It's me, Linda B. Thank you all so much for joining me here today. I am here talking about some clips from the current president, Jim Crow Joe Biden's past, leading up to more into the future. Yes, we see a very strange pattern with him. But before we get back into the video, don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell if you haven't already. Thank you all so much for your support. I am on my way to 40,000 subscribers. I'm getting closer every day. Thank you all so much. Also, I ask that you visit childlightcandles.com. This is a Christian and veteran-owned company. 25% of their profits go to veterans and their families. Input the discount code LindaB. So you all know that Jim Crow Joe, that's why I call him Jim Crow Joe, because of his past. And as recently as the last presidential election, he said, if you have trouble figuring out whether or not you want to vote for me or Trump, then you ain't black. And we all know about that fried chicken debacle. And I don't want to say the whole fried chicken thing is really racist, but, why would you automatically assume fried chicken, when you go visit black people? Just saying, that's saying. Let's get into it.
The thing about how perspectives change over time. Bobby Rush, member of Congress, said the other day, I'm ashamed that I voted for the 94 crime bill. You ashamed of that bill?
Not at all. And in fact, I drafted the bill, as you remember.
I know that.
Unless we do something about that cadre of young people, tens of thousands of them, born out of wedlock, without parents, without supervision, without any structure, without any conscience developing, because they literally, I yield myself 3 more minutes, because they literally have not been socialized. They literally have not had an opportunity. We should focus on them now, not out of a liberal instinct for love, brother, and humanity, although I think that's a good instinct, but for simple, pragmatic reasons. If we don't, they will, or a portion of them will, become the predators 15 years from now. And, Madam President, we have predators on our streets that society has, in fact, in part because of its neglect, created.
Okay. I'm going to tell you something, Jim Crow Joe. I know this was a long time ago. I know this was, 30 years ago? The things that he's complaining about, out of wedlock births, no parents, well, they have their mother typically at home, but not the father. Those are things that the Democrat or the Demon Rat Party created. The welfare state, becoming dependent on the government, being married to the government rather than the father of the children. That's what the demon rats did. They always do something hideous. And now he's complaining about the thing that his own party created. Talking about, I'm just talking about the out of wedlock birth part when I say something that his party created. That's the only part I'm talking about. And he's talking about predators. Yes, these predators with no conscience. Yes, that's Jim Crow Joe. Yeah, he earned that name.
Again, it does not mean because we created them that we somehow forgive them or do not take them out of society to protect my family and yours from them. They are beyond the pale, many of those people. beyond the pale. And it's a sad commentary on society. We have no choice but to take them out of society.
Mass incarceration has put hundreds of thousands behind bars for minor offenses. Joe Biden wrote those laws.
Every major crime bill that's come out of this Congress has had the name Joe Biden on that bill. We do everything but hang people for jaywalking in this bill.
Joe Biden's policies destroyed millions of black lives. Joe Biden may not remember, but we do.
Right, so if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black. Take a look at my record, man.
When I marched in the civil rights movement, I marched with tens of thousands of others.
He had not actually marched during the civil rights movement and kept telling the story anyway.
I came out of the civil rights movement. I was one of those guys that sat in and marched and all that stuff.
Now, his aides went back to say, look, he was in office marching for the idea.
That's not the word marching.
Twitter. I was not out marching.
If you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
They're going to put you all back in chains.
And you ain't black.
Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids.
You ain't black. You ain't black. You ain't black. You ain't black.
The most racist thing a person could tell me is that I'm supposed to choose something based on my race.
You ain't black.
Yes, that's one of the most racist things they can say. But that other stuff, Jim Crow Joe is a hot mess. He has a history of stuff. And I got some more clips. You guys have got to check this out. I'm just showing you this because we need to be reminded of some things. A tree is known by the fruit that it bears, especially when it comes to politicians.
As also noted, Robert C. Byrd was a parliamentary library, a keeper of the institution of the Senate, and he was the institution itself. But to me, and many people here today, like guys I see, Bill Bradley and Jim Sasser, who long left the Senate for greener pastures, and I hope better remuneration. We used to kid about that too, but for a lot of us, he was a friend, and he was a mentor, and he was a guide.
That was Jim Crow Joe speaking at the memorial service for Robert C. Byrd, a friend, a mentor, and a guide. The former Klansman, Robert C. Byrd, and he did mentor Jim Crow Joe and Hillary. He sure did. I wonder where they got all that racist stuff from. Makes you wonder, huh? How we vote for the people that want to put us back in chains.
Joe Biden recently signed off on Juneteenth as a national holiday in the U.S. The recognition of the holiday, which commemorates the end of slavery in the U.S., has been celebrated as a major symbolic shift away from the rhetoric of the Trump era. But many have forgotten this moment during the 2019 Democratic primary.
And I'm going to now direct this at Vice President Biden. I do not believe you are a racist. And I agree with you when you commit yourself to the importance of finding common ground. But I also believe, and it's personal, and I was actually it was hurtful to hear you talk about the reputations of two United States senators who built their reputations and career on the segregation of race in this country. And it was not only that, but you also worked with them to oppose busing. And, there was a little girl in California who was part of the second class to integrate her public schools. And she was bused to school every day. And that little girl was me.
Despite insisting that she wasn't calling Biden racist, Harris was in fact accusing him of preventing black students from integrating into white schools, and of being friends with openly racist politicians. So, what is Joe Biden's real record on race? Harris wasn't inaccurate in her criticism of Biden, who has a checkered history on racial justice, despite painting himself as a staunch civil rights advocate over the years. Perhaps one of the most criticized moments in Biden's past is his involvement in the creation of the notorious 1994 crime bill. People forget that the informal name for the bill was Biden's crime law. The legislation is widely criticized for being responsible for making the effects of mass incarceration in the U.S. exponentially worse. Biden was also a key architect of the devastating Iraq War. Responsibility for the war is often blamed on George W. Bush, Dick Cheney, and other Republicans. But in reality, Biden played a key role as a Democrat. In the lead up to the war, Biden convened a series of Senate hearings to drum up support for the invasion on the basis of flimsy intelligence material being presented by the Republicans.
What is the threat from Iraq? Obviously, to fully answer this question will require us to have additional enclosed hearings.
Not a single anti-war voice was invited to the hearings. Biden also admits to having been civil with Democratic colleagues who were openly racist, like James Eastland, who had a long history of racist remarks, including that black Americans belonged to an inferior race, as well as the segregationist Herman Talmadge, who vigorously opposed school integration.
Governor, this means in effect that your state would set up a private school system. We intend to maintain separate schools in Georgia, one way or another, come what may.
Biden also developed a decades-long friendship with segregationist Strom Thurmond, who he worked with attempting to pass the Biden-Thurmond Violent Crime Control Act in 1991. Biden also spoke at his funeral.
We became good friends. I'm not sure exactly why or how it happened, Nancy, but you know we did.
In the lead-up to the 2008 election, Biden was also in the spotlight for a number of comments, including referring to Barack Obama as articulate and clean, and associating Indian immigrants with Dunkin' Donuts and 7-Eleven chains.
Do these gaffes or misunderstandings, or however you would characterize them, indicate you're uncomfortable talking about race, or are people just being too sensitive?
I think that I have my whole career. I got involved in public policy. I got involved in politics because of the civil rights movement.
Biden also has an unreliable history surrounding his own involvement in the civil rights struggle. He has at times claimed to have been deeply involved, at other times not that active, and in the lead up to the 2020 election once again claimed to have been heavily involved. He was also caught out claiming to have been arrested trying to visit Nelson Mandela.
This day, 30 years ago, Nelson Mandela walked out of prison and entered into discussions about apartheid. I had the great honor of meeting him. I had the great honor of being arrested with our UN ambassador on the streets of Soweto trying to get to see him on Robbins Island.
You now say you weren't arrested and it didn't happen in Soweto. You were at the airport in Johannesburg and you were stopped from going through the door for blacks. I guess the question is, were you confused or were you just trying to embellish a story?
Offered the chance to run with Biden in 2020, Kamala Harris's once scathing criticisms about race faded away, and the two have worked closely since winning the election.
I believe you that you're fully supportive of him. How does that transition happen? How do you go from being such a passionate opponent on such bedrock principles for you, and now you guys seem to be pals?
It was a debate.
Not everybody landed punches like you did, though.
It was a debate.
So you don't mean it?
It was a debate.
Oh, there she go with the cackling. And all she can say is, it was a debate, cackling Kamala Harris. But during that moment, during that debate, she seemed like coherent and more intelligent, wasn't cackling. I mean, but she can just talk and not laugh. I mean, she sounds pretty intelligent, but that laughing. And all she can say is, it was a debate. How did she go from that to cackling? It just amazes me. Well, anyway, you see that Joe Biden, Jim Crow Joe, has a history of racism. One interviewer said, were you just confused or were you just embellishing a story? Might have been both. I don't know. I think back then he was just embellishing a story, trying to make himself look good, trying to hide from his racist past. He worked closely with someone who said that Black people are an inferior race. Now you ought to know. And some of you may wonder why I call him Jim Crow Joe. You know why I call him that. That is ridiculous. And this is the person that a lot of Black people want to vote for. Insane. Mentored by a KKK member. Him and Hillary. That's right. Mentored by Robert C. Byrd. He said he was a mentor, a guide, and a friend. Spoke at the funeral. So when you speak at someone's funeral, you high up on the chain of who they're close to. So this is what we have right now. We have someone who is for freedom, that being Donald Trump, even though the media and the clefty lefties try to paint him as the racist. He doesn't have the history that Jim Crow Joe has. Donald Trump does not. And I looked into that housing discrimination stuff. I said I was going to come back with that. That was really more under Trump's father, and it had something to do with the people being on welfare, trying to get into those buildings. That's what I read. Now, if you have something else, I'll dig a little bit deeper, but it was more about them not having the income to live in those buildings rather than it was just because they were Black. So a lot of people talk about that. And yeah, and the CC5 thing, or the CP5, I should say CP5, Central Park 5. They say, well, he put out an ad. Was it because they were Black, or was it just because he's sensitive to a woman having that done to her? And he's just thinking that they're guilty, and it has nothing to do with their color. Sometimes when Black people say something, when white people say something against Black people, the thinking is they automatically must be racist. Well, it doesn't have anything to do with their race. It was what that person think that they did. And I don't claim to know what really happened in a Central Park 5. I wasn't there. I was nowhere near the place, okay? And it's hard to know the truth when you're getting stories and different commentary from different places. But you all tell me what you think about all those clips. Yeah, look at that Jim Crow Joe said he admitted that he wasn't there, doing the civil rights. And then just straight up lied. Lord have mercy. Where was PolitiFact back then? Not that it's good, because they're owned by the Dems. We all give me your thoughts and your comments. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. On my way to 40,000 subscribers. Thank you all so much. Also visit childlightcandles.com. It's a Christian-owned company that 25% of their profits go to veterans and their families. Also, I am on social media, Instagram, TikTok, and X as ChatWithMeLindaB. And you can catch me on Rumble, but type it in as one word, ChatWithMeLindaB. Thank you all so much. You all be blessed. Love God, your families, these United States of America. And as they always say, march on, warriors.